That brings us to our third section. In this section, we'll offer PwC's perspectives on the business implications for broadcast and wireless companies. There are really three. I'm sorry. Let me let Dan Hayes introduce himself, and then we'll jump into this section.
Sure. Thanks, Gordon. My name is Dan Hayes. I'm a principal and the leader of the U.S. Wireless Advisory Practice with PwC. I've been working with the industry for close to 20 years, and particularly focus on matters of complex regulatory and network issues. So really have enjoyed today's discussion and today's conversation with the panel. I know we have a great audience in attendance today, and thanks to everybody for joining. We've got a few closing comments, and I want to share some thoughts on what you could be doing to really move things forward.
Terrific, Dan. Thanks. So as we think about really where the critical opportunities are available to broadcast and wireless companies today, we've really broken them down into three categories. First is rulemaking, really your ability to weigh in on the proposed auction process, rules and timings and the impacts. The second is really how you think about your strategy and the valuation, the bandwidth, whether you're a broadcaster or a wireless provider, in terms of how you're going to think about your participation. And the third, of course, is execution. There's been a lot of talk today about being able to properly execute this transition. It's one of the third really impactful area. But Dan, we'll kind of go into more detail about those three.
Sure. Thanks, Gordon. So, in terms of the first opportunity, I think we can't emphasize enough that you need to make your voice heard. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, as Rebecca highlighted and Bill presented earlier, and it's important that everyone in this entire entertainment, media, and communications value chain shares their perspective with the FCC and helps to shape the future of this rulemaking. You see a list here of questions that we see as really critical items for this auction. So, they include things like, what should the criteria for bidders be? Are there other factors other than price that should be considered in the determination of winners in these various rounds of bidding? And how should we be thinking about the operational impacts of these actions, whether it's repacking or whether it is the clearing of the spectrum so that it can be used in the future for mobile broadband purposes. There are a lot of really important considerations here, and I know from our conversations with the staff at the FCC that they really genuinely want input from the ecosystem and want you to contribute. At the end of this presentation, I think we'll have a link to the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, and there are opportunities in there for everyone to provide comments. Those comments, I believe they're due December 21st, although that may have been extended. Getting the high sign up, extended to January 25th. Yes, late breaking news. Sorry about that. So the next piece here is around your strategy, and particularly important, your valuation. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, we think that there's a critical opportunity here for everyone involved in this effort to take advantage of this, to reflect and say, what is this opportunity worth for them? And as Bill highlighted in his initial presentation, this is not just a matter of selling or not selling. And it's not just a matter for potential purchasers of buying or not buying. It's about alternatives and trade-offs. If you're a broadcaster, it may be about the comment that was made by the NAB about what type of community you serve and what the ways that you're creating value to do that. If you're a wireless operator, it may be about the trade-offs between acquiring more spectrum versus building out more sites or making a move to small cells. These are not black or white issues, and we recognize that as you place a value on things, it's going to be a complex set of issues that you're going to have to look at and really create a number of scenarios to help you make the decision as to how to establish the value that you're willing to sell or willing to buy at. We also view, importantly, that while it's not black or white, there are a number of shades of gray opportunities, if you will, in the middle. For example, if you're an existing broadcaster, maybe not broadcasting still enables you to reach a very wide audience. Perhaps you can still access and serve many of your constituents of your audience over other channels, whether it's satellite, whether it's cable, whether it's over-the-top type of services. There are a number of options today. So it's important not to just think about any entity in this as a single monolithic value, but more as a sum of parts. And looking at this has been a very dynamic industry for many years, and I think that we see that there are opportunities for everyone involved to really look at it and look at what the future holds, and not just what has been the paradigm in the past. Finally, I also want to talk about execution. We're early in the process. We've got perhaps a couple of years, but the reality is this is not going to happen overnight. It is critical that everyone in this value chain is thinking about this opportunity now and is putting in place the capabilities and the plans to actually execute on whatever change is required of you. For broadcasters and their providers, it's important to look at, if you do stay on the air, what's the potential impact of the retune? There are precious few crews out there today that do high tower climbing. Perhaps you need to access them, reserve some capacity in advance. You need to think about that based on where you are in the current band plan. Looking at the analyses that may need to be done on towers or on equipment that's to be provided, and in fact, is that equipment readily available today? For content providers, cable operators, and others, a lot of this may be about your content strategy. Perhaps it points to opportunities to acquire more local content that's meaningful to your audience. Perhaps there's an opportunity to look at your audience itself and see if there are opportunities to reshape that with the availability here. And for the mobile operators and their providers, as we talked about on the panel, there are a number of different changes that this portends. Impacts on devices, impacts on network equipment, often that have long multi-year lead times in order to have compatibility with the new bands. Impacts on how you integrate that spectrum into your overall network planning. These are not things that happen overnight, and those of us that work with the industries here know that this is going to take a lot of heavy lifting to really get it done, and so it's going to be important to think about it in advance. So those are just a few of the potential impacts. Let me turn it back over to Gordon to wrap things up and talk about where you can go for additional information as well.
Terrific. Thanks, Dan. So obviously, we talked about a lot of different things here, and whether you're a broadcaster or a wireless company, it really comes down to today, first, being able to weigh in on the proposed rules and opportunities. You've got till the January 25th to really provide some insightful voice into the process. Then really looking at the value of the opportunities and options, and how do you navigate, not only enter, but how do you navigate the auction process? And then lastly, how do you prepare for the impact of ongoing operations and changing aspects of the business? And we've only touched on really some really kind of core aspects of how you understand the auction process, and how you can think about your strategy and planning. But of course, that could lead to lots of other things. It could lead to partnerships. It could lead to valuation, product strategies, mergers, acquisitions, even restructuring or transition planning, and then program management. How will you actually navigate the transition associated with your businesses? All these things together are important in terms of that executional aspect of it. So, as Dan said, also in the deck you see that you can download. There's some links for some additional information, as well as the phone numbers and email addresses of all that participated here. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for your time and the opportunity for us to share the introduction and overview of the process, as well as some key aspects of what to think about in terms of how you should weigh the evaluation and how you can navigate through an effective strategy. Thank you.